Here in the fish room, we love big tanks. From a 200-gallon angelfish tank to a 650-gallon monster fish tank, and several tanks in between. We have our fair share of experience with big tanks. And what's not to love about them? The more space, the more fish you can have. And that's great for big fish and even small fish. But they're not always what they're cracked up to be. They do come with their downsides and their challenges. So with that in mind, today we're talking about the top 5 reasons you may not want a big fish tank. So why do people keep big tanks? Well, generally it's to have more fish, or bigger fish, and you need bigger tanks to properly house these animals. And you also generally want to decorate these tanks with plants and rocks and driftwood to make them more aesthetically appealing, but also to give the fish a better habitat to live in. And that's where we start running into problem number 1. Sometimes you might be looking at your big, awesome fish tank and not even see the fish that you're keeping. Fish like to hide. Even when they're not overly stressed, sometimes they'll just take refuge behind a rock or piece of driftwood just to chill out for a bit. And sometimes they may not even be actively hiding. They might just be in a corner or behind a plant and you just can't see them because your tank is so big. And of course, there's varying levels to this issue with different species. African cichlids tend to be out and about more often. They are more active, whereas your angelfish or your discus tend to be more reclusive. But even with active fish, sometimes they're just nowhere to be found. And this isn't inherently a bad thing, because you'll typically have more than just one fish in your tank, and you can see the other fish that are in there, the ones that aren't hiding from you or out of sight right now. But sometimes you want to see a particular fish and you almost get convinced that it jumped out of the tank somehow or it just magically disappeared. I have a 34-inch fire eel in my 650-gallon, and let me tell you, that guy is impressively good at hiding and he freaks me out sometimes. But he's still in there, it's just a big aquarium. Alright, this next one's a bit obvious, so we won't spend a ton of time on it. But big tanks cost big money, and you might be surprised when you actually go shopping for big tanks, because the cost doesn't grow linearly. In other words, a 250-gallon is not going to cost you twice as much as a 125. It's most likely going to be more than quadruple the cost of a 125. And there's several factors for this, but most of it's due to the height of the tank. Taller tanks require thicker glass and thicker acrylic, and those costs grow exponentially. And that just drives the purchase cost of the aquarium. We haven't even touched on the cost of substrate, decor, filtration equipment, and lighting. All of these costs add up fast. You're looking at easily $3,000 for a fully loaded 225-gallon aquarium, and approaching tens of thousands for true monster tanks. But that's if you buy everything new. If you're interested in building your own monster tanks for much cheaper, stay tuned to the channel and hit that subscribe button. We'll be putting out some great DIY tutorials. It won't come as a surprise to hear that maintaining a big aquarium takes a lot more time than maintaining a small aquarium. But even so, there's aspects to it that you probably haven't thought about, and wouldn't until you have one yourself and have to do it. Commitments such as cleaning your filtration system or doing water changes become much more difficult when working with big volumes of water. But the thing that will surprise you is simple stuff, like cleaning algae off your glass or vacuuming the substrate. If the tank is so tall or so wide front to back that you can't directly reach all the spots, then it takes a lot more effort and thus time for you to actually accomplish what you're trying to do. I'm just going to say it, catching fish is one of the most annoying aspects of the hobby, But when you have a big fish tank, catching fish is the worst. It's so much hassle. And if you have a lot of decor, you got to get the decor out of the way. The fish are going to be hiding from you. It's impossible to catch them. There's just so much more space for them to swim around and avoid you. I have giant pond nets that I use when trying to catch up big fish from my big tanks. And I'll often use a combination of 3 nets. One to kind of corral them around the tank, one to block off areas of escape, and one to actually catch them. And even so, it's still almost an impossible task. And it's something you're going to have to do. No matter how much you think otherwise, at some point you're going to need to catch fish out of your big aquarium. Maybe you just want to move some fish around, or maybe you want to pull some fish out to breed them, or you have some sick fish and you need to put them in a hospital tank to treat them with medication. You're eventually going to need to move fish. And when you do, oh gosh, you are going to regret having that awesome big aquarium. Like me right here, who worked so hard to catch a fish, and it wasn't even the one I wanted. Alright, this last reason admittedly won't be a problem for you very often. But when it is a problem, it is a massive one. And that is, what are you going to do when you want to move? Think about how much work it is to move from one house or apartment to another, just without aquariums. And then add an aquarium into that mix, or a few of them. And then consider what it would be like when they are big aquariums. Potentially hundreds of pounds of substrate and rock and wood that you have to haul out of the tank and move it to your next location. And then all the fish that will go with it. Because invariably you'll have a ton of fish, because you need to fill up that awesome aquarium. Or you might just have one really big fish, and that presents challenges in its own right. And then you come to the actual tank itself, which is gonna be heavy. Way more than you can do on your own, and probably more than you can do with a helping hand. You're most likely gonna need to coordinate 3 or more people to come help move your aquarium. Alright, if I haven't scared you off yet, then I want to end things with one final thought. If you understand what we've talked about so far, and know these downsides going into it, a big aquarium is totally worth it. They are so much fun and so rewarding. Yes, there are challenges, and they require a lot of work. But aren't the best things in life worth working for? Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. If you like this kind of stuff, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It means a lot. And I just even appreciate you watching this video. Take it easy, and I'll see you next time.